Thanks for that. Yep, so as John said, I'm going to be talking about accessibility. The example I'm looking at are modals or pop-ups, but really a lot of these theories and a lot of these practices and these techniques can be applied to all sorts of web components that aren't standard HTML5. For ones that are standard HTML5, like anything like forms and headings and links and all that sort of stuff, screen readers, everything works really, really fine. They're really predictable. The people who make the screen readers know what a form is. They know how it should act. But things that are a bit more complicated, like modals, which don't have any standard HTML format, there's not as this is how you do a modal. They're all over the place, so when the screen reader gets to them, it has absolutely no idea what to do with them, and it can get really, really messy. So I'm here to show you what I've spent a few months sort of working on this and trying to get it as accessible as possible to as many different browsers and as many different screen readers. Because just like with browsers, screen readers, they're all done by different people, and they all have their interesting little quirks. So hopefully I've made it a bit easier. I've already investigated it for you. All my code is up on GitHub as well, if you want to have a look at the end. OK. So modals are becoming increasingly more popular. I go to so many sites now and they've got so many modals and pop-ups that come up at the site. You know, subscribe to our newsletter, all those sorts of things. They can have forms, they can have alerts, they can have lots of interesting information in them. But because there's no standard way of doing them, a lot of the time screen readers, yeah, they don't pick up on it. This might be good, maybe, because some of them do get a bit annoying, so maybe it's quite nice for them to not have to see them. But if you want your users to see them, you've really got to make them accessible. So on the project I was doing, we had a few of these lying around. More often we had these, though. We had JavaScript alerts, and we had on-hover tooltips. And yeah, they're not the nicest things to look at. And when it comes to accessibility, they were not getting picked up by screen readers, and they weren't accessible with a keyboard either. They were on-hover events, and it was a bit of a mess, and it made the whole site feel really inconsistent, because it would be doing the same sort of thing, but at this point it was a modal, at this point it was a tooltip, at this point it was an alert. So when I came on board with the project and was asked to make it more accessible, I decided that modals were a good way to go, to make it standardized across the entire site, and to get a really nice, consistent look and feel. Now, we had Bootstrap on this one. Bootstrap have gone a long way to try and make their components as accessible as possible. They have a lot of ARIA tags, which I'll get to in a minute, which talk to the screen reader for non-traditional web components to let them know, hey, this is what's going on. So that's really good. There are a few things that I was advised to kind of take out and tweak, and there are a few additions that I've added in just to make it a little bit better, so I'll go through those. When it came to a screen reader, they were pretty good. It was mostly there. Now, these are the two screen readers that I did my testing on. I did it on the token Windows machine at work, because a lot of screen reader users have Windows as their primary operating system. It's about 82%. And these ones only work on Windows. So it's JAWS, which is a paid screen reader service, which has been around since Microsoft DOS. So it's been around since the 80s. And NVDA, which is a free screen reading software, which I do have a demo of that a little bit later on. So together, these are about 70% of the people who use screen readers will use either these two ones. So if you do these ones, you're covering a lot. Other ones that are quite popular are VoiceOver, which is on Mac, and that comes free, which is fantastic. Another one that I started using, which was really good, was Chromevox, but that's about less than 1% of people use Chromevox, so I stopped testing on that. Now, the W3C, they have these ARIA attributes. We can put these into our HTML, and what it does is it sends extra information to the screen reader. So this is generally visual information that would be lost otherwise. We can put it in, we can sneak in hidden text, hidden messages, hidden bits and pieces to let them know how something is going to work. So for example, if we have a modal, so this is just on my GitHub site, there's a lot of information here that's immediately visual and immediately apparent that we have to get across with the screen reader, otherwise it's not going to work, they're not going to know how to use it. So we can see that this is the main content here that we're supposed to read. The part in the background has been blurred out, so we can't see that, so we know we're not supposed to read that at the moment. We can also see this little X in the corner, so we know that's what we've got to press in order to close the modal. and get back to where we're going. So this is the information that we need to think about, and we need to put into our ARIA tags and into our roles and hidden text so that people using a screen reader will have some idea what's going on. Otherwise, it gets very, very confusing. By default, the Bootstrap modal has this role in it here, role dialog. I was advised by Vision Australia to delete this. It takes away a lot of control from the user. So it takes away, instead of being able to navigate around, because you use the keyboard when you have a screen reader, instead of being able to go up and down, if there's something you didn't understand, you can go back, you can reread it. It becomes more of a podcast sort of thing. So it just reads everything out from top to bottom, and if you miss something in the middle, you have to go through it again and again and again, which is, I think, works really well if you do have some sort of podcast transcript or YouTube transcript. You don't want to sit there and press next, next, next a million times. But I think for a modal, probably not needed. Because then you also have to put in this extra role here. This is role document, which is by default what your web page is going to have. It's going to have role document, which means that the screen reader user has a lot of control. They can go up, they can go backwards, they can use all their shortcut keys to find all their forms and all their links and headers and all sorts of things, and they have a lot more control, which is really good. So I don't tend to use these, but I can see that there are situations where they would be a lot more useful. Okay, so we'll just take a bit of a step back as to how we open the modal. So what I've done is I've got a little button, so I've got a little link that you can tab to, you can click on, or you can touch with a touch screen. So that's part of accessibility, so it doesn't matter how you're using it, what you have, you can access this modal. Unlike before where we had tooltips where you could only do it if you had a mouse and you're hovering over it, so it wasn't really accessible. Because this is a link, however, it's not acting like a normal link. So as you know, a normal link, it opens up a window, it opens up a tab, or it jumps around the page. It doesn't act like that. So what we had to do is put in a little bit of hidden text just to let the user know, hey, this isn't a normal link. This is going to open up a dialog window, just so you know, just so you don't get confused by what's going on. This is how I did it originally. I thought I was being really clever. There was an ARIA attribute, ARIA hidden. I thought I'd put that to false so that the screen reader would pick it up. And then I put display none so that you couldn't see it on there because you don't want your hidden text showing. It looks really messy. And I thought, hey, this is really fantastic. It works in Chromevox, which is Chrome's free screen reading software, which is really nice. However, as I said, less than 1% of people use Chromevox, and it doesn't work in the two major ones. It doesn't work in JAWS, and it doesn't work in NVDA. So I had to go back to the drawing board there because that really wasn't good enough. So I stole this code from Bootstrap. So this is their screen reader only class. There's a few variations of this around, so it's just a way of hiding the text without kind of getting rid of it completely. I like this one a little bit better than other ones. Some you might see -99999, and it's moving it way out of the viewport. I think this is a little messy, so it's just making it kind of take up 0 pixels. So this is quite nice. So then I've got my hidden text there, I've got my screen reader only class there, and it just hides it, and it gives the user just that little bit more information. There are a couple of other ways as well, a couple of other ARIA attributes that you can put in to also do hidden text. So one is the ARIA label by, where you can go, this div, it has a label, and the label is over here somewhere, and you have that pointing to an ID somewhere. So in this case, I've got it pointing to the header. You've also got the ARIA attribute ARIA label close. So in this case, I've got my little cross where you can click to close it, and I've just got a label close, so then when you get to that with the screen reader, it's going to say close instead of nothing, basically. So it's really good to have these ones as well and to utilize those. The ARIA hidden one that I talked about just before, however, it is quite useful, and it does get used in this example. So what we do here is that we can dynamically update the elements to ARIA hidden true, ARIA hidden false. So when the modal comes up, we use JavaScript. We turn this one to ARIA hidden false, so the screen reader can read this. And we turn the background to ARIA hidden true, so the screen reader can't read any of the background information. It can't get there by accident. And it also means that if you never click the modal, you can't go all the way to the bottom of the screen and then get to the modal text down the bottom and then be really, really confused with what's going on. So it just, a way to update, hey, we're looking at this now, screen reader. So I'll just show you how I did that. So I've just got my show modal function where I'm just updating the body attribute. And then I've got my hide modal function where I'm just updating the attribute there as well. So pretty simple stuff. We're just putting in the attributes in and out of the elements as we go. Okay, the last thing that we wanted to do, because you can see here that this is the important information here, but a lot of modals, when I was testing them with the keyboard, you would get to this information, you would press the tab key to go next, and the tab focus would leave the modal and go to the background there to the next link and all the way down, and it would get really, really confusing. So if you were using a screen reader, it would just kind of go all over the place. If this was hidden, it would just go up to the top to the URI and just keep repeating the URI, and it was really quite frustrating. So this is something that I also took this code, and I've got a link to it at the end in pure JavaScript, but I kind of adapted it with jQuery and with jQuery UI, just to make it so to trap the tab focus in here so you can't accidentally tab back and forth. So what I've done is I've put a little bit of hidden text. The way that this one works, unfortunately, in the browsers that I've tried, is that you need at least 3 elements that are focusable. So if you've just got the one in the corner, the close, it doesn't quite work. You need 2 more. Thankfully, I also had to put in some hidden text, start of dialogue, end of dialogue for NVDA. JAWS was fine, it didn't need it, but NVDA needed it. And yep, so lots of trial and error here. So what I did is I put tab indexes on those. I've got my 3 elements. So the tab focus stays in between those 3 elements, backwards and forwards, and it doesn't accidentally go back into the body, and so the user doesn't get confused with that. Now I do have, I'll see if this works, but I have shown this, and I've done a little demo of NVDA and what it kind of sounds like when I'm going through this example. So I'll just see if that works. I'm not sure, this isn't my laptop, so we'll see how it goes. So I'm not convinced this one is going to work today. But if you want to have a look at my slides later, it's just a quick little 20-second video. It's got NVDA on it, or you can just download it. If you've got a Windows machine, you can download it and listen to it, or a Mac, you can just listen to VoiceOver. And what it does is it says all that hidden text out loud. It says it very, very fast. So it takes a little bit to get used to, and somebody who uses a screen reader exclusively, it'll go even faster. But what it does is it says all that text. So it goes to the link and says, link will open dialog window. It opens it up, start of dialog, heading level 1, modal, and it goes through everything until you close it, and then it goes back to the other page. So it is really, really useful if you are looking into accessibility and you are testing out web components with accessibility, to get your hands onto a screen reader like NVDA and just have a bit of a listen. The advice is to turn off the monitor and see if you can still navigate around. It is really, really hard to do this, and so I really, really recommend doing it just to kind of see what they see, and to have a think about what visual information is being lost when we go from the screen to the screen reader. So what do I have to add in order to make the experience a lot more predictable and a lot better for the person who's using the screen reader? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rihanna. So we got a little bit of time for questions while we set up for our next speaker. Has somebody got any? Who's really familiar and is using ARIA? They're using that sort of stuff? We got some work to do here. You really should go and look and explore it. And I guess it ties back a little bit to what Alex said this morning about the good Alex and the bad Alex. You know, it's almost like every time any of us do this, every time we build anything, we have to add all the roles. And really, it's the role, we're using Angular and React and all these kind of frameworks. It's kind of their job, isn't it, to a point? Or if you're doing this internally as a component library, shouldn't we be building in at that level?
Yeah, if you're doing a component library, that's where I would add in all the accessibility features, and then you don't have to worry about it. You can just add them in as you go. A lot of HTML5 elements now, the screen readers know how to talk to them, so you don't actually need a lot of roles and elements that you used to before, because it knows this is a form. I know how to talk to this. I know exactly what's going on. It's mainly just the really customizable ones like the modals, accordions, any animations that you can't, loading bars, anything like that, where you just need a little bit of extra information there to let the screen reader user know what's going on.
Right. Have we got time for a question or so? Has anyone got any specific? Yep, over here, just behind you, Mel. I can't believe we're still. It's just.
Yeah. It's quite quick to add in, like
That's it,
roles
like,
and stuff.
I think most people think
Hi.
it's expensive, but it's not. Like, question over here.
Hi. I noticed you mentioned Vision Australia. Are they interested in getting involved in web projects? Like if we said, can you look at our site? Is it accessible? Are they interested in that kind of thing?
Yep, that's what happened with us. We had Vision Australia do an audit of our site, and they had a look through a number of pages, and then they came back with a really full detailed report saying which parts weren't accessible, and then it gave detailed examples of the HTML or CSS or JavaScript needed in order to make it accessible. So they were a really, really good resource. They were really friendly about it as well. Whenever I had a question, hey, this role dialogue thing, what's going on? They would always get back to me and let me know. And then at the end, we did pass the audit to AA standard, and then they were able to issue an official certificate saying that we were accessible to a certain level as well, which is what we needed for this project.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Fantastic. A little plug there for Vision Australia. But you've also got people like Access IQ that came out of the Australian Captioning Centre up there in Sydney, and some great individual experts. Australia really punches above its weight, I think, in accessibility. Folks like Roger Hudson and many others, Gian Wild down here, who've really contributed a lot to this over the years. So
It came up a lot, I think, after the 2000 Sydney
very
games.
famous. Do
Yeah.
a search for SOCOG. The historical memory of SOCOG is that they got sued. Kevin, just behind you. Look, this is too easy, this one.
Hello. How stable are these screen readers as platforms? Because I got the sense a lot of your compatibility work was trial and error. And how often does a new version of a screen reader come out and break everything you discovered about it?
Generally, as the screen readers go on, they get better and better. So it used to be once upon a time that the screen readers, for example, could not handle JavaScript at all. They would just completely fall over, and yeah, it wasn't great. And as a consequence, a lot of people using screen readers would just turn JavaScript off. And so that's actually one of the things that we make sure as well, is that everything works without JavaScript, just in case they're still doing that. Though I'm not really sure. I will have to look into JAWS, because JAWS is a paid one, and so I'm not sure if they give you free updates as you go along. I'm fairly sure they would, but I think NVA do that as well. But as far as I can tell, it's getting better and better with HTML5 and with the new versions. There's so much less work you have to do, which is really good.
All right, would you please, once more, thank Rihanna for that wonderful presentation. Thank you, Rihanna.